The 2021 NBA free agent class has been historic. The players will have suitors calling the second the market opens up. Which phone calls they choose to answer, though, might surprise you. Join me as I take you through the top potential free agency destinations. So, number 6, the Toronto Raptors. Whether or not the Raptors chase other top free agents hinges on what happens with their own. Kyle Lowry, whose name bounced around before the trade deadline like an over-caffeinated kid on a trampoline, stayed put during swap season but hardly locked in its future beyond that. Toronto could marry its future with his, but the sides could just as easily decide they're better off apart. If Lowry leaves, and with some financial maneuvering, Toronto could be in the ballpark of a $25 million cap space. If so, it should have the chance to splurge on one of the biggest and brightest stars on the market. The Raptors aren't even 2 full years removed from a world championship. The coach who led that charge is still at the helm, as are several key contributors who have all elevated their game since then. Pascal Siakam has an all-star appearance in 2 seasons of 20-plus points per game under his belt. OG Anunoby makes the short list of the NBA's best 3-and-D wings. Fred VanVleet is now an $85 million man living up to that contract with nearly 20 points a game. Give this roster another top-shelf ingredient and the Raptors might be able to cook up another championship recipe. Now that will surely sound ambitious for a 21-32 team, but Toronto actually has a positive net rating and a plus 500 expected record. If the Raptors can bring Ujiri back, they'd have an expert executive, a championship pedigree, and a magnificent market to sell to free agents. They could absolutely be major players in 2021 free agency if that's the path they pursue. Number 5, the Charlotte Hornets. When Kemba Walker bounced out of Charlotte in 2019, the franchise faced a long and uncertain future without an obvious focus. Not even 2 years later, the Hornets have their buzz back, and it's growing loud enough to potentially lure in another notable free agent, just like it did with Gordon Hayward this past season. Charlotte could sit about $26 million below the cap line, based on projections from Amick and Hollinger, which is more than enough wiggle room to splurge. Now, that opportunity could present itself if future Hoopers for hire have been tracking the happenings with this squad. Stardom is awaiting rookie LaMelo Ball. In his debut season, he's already one of just 13 players to average 15 points, 6 assists, and 5 rebounds. Narrow the scope to his 21 starts, and he's up to 19 points, 6 dimes, and 5 boards, making him one of 10 players to hit those marks. Ball is the type of talent that other players should want to join. He's always looking to pass and rarely misses an open teammate. He doesn't have to dominate the ball either, since his 3-point shot is sharp enough to add value as a spot-up sniper. Now, beyond Ball, the Hornets have a former All-Star in Hayward, who is comfortable in the spotlight but just as effective in a supporting role. Terry Rozier works on or off the ball, and his defensive motor is always revved. Miles Bridges bouncing around like he's in a pair of moon boots. PJ Washington is so good in his glue guy role that he might score a sponsorship with Elmer's. This entire quintet is under contract for next season, and there is still some cash to throw around. Go-to scorers and impact bigs should be itching for the opportunity to latch onto this rising roster. Number 4, the New Orleans Pelicans. The Pelicans can craft quite the sales pitch for free agent targets. However, it probably won't include Lonzo Ball, since a new deal for him and restricted free agency would effectively prevent the franchise from making other major purchases. But if Ball isn't re-signed, remember the Pels were taking trade calls in January per the Athletic's Shams Charania, then New Orleans might have in the neighborhood of $20 million to throw around. That's enough to snag an impact piece eager to slot up alongside 2 of the best young stars in the game. Zion Williamson, who is the top recruiting chip. He's a 6'7", 284-pound dunking machine who's apparently doubling as the Pels' new point guard. He masterfully held down the spot this last time out and promptly piled up 37 points, 15 boards, and 8 dimes in 35 minutes. The Pels do have a second star in Brandon Ingram, who dazzles in secondary scoring and distributing roles. Tack on Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Kyra Lewis Jr., and Jackson Hayes, and this young roster holds some serious intrigue, even if Ball and Josh Hart, also scheduled for restricted free agency, leave this offseason. Williamson has the potential to be the best player in the league. Ingram could be a perennial all-star. No matter how the rest of the roster shapes up around them, New Orleans undoubtedly has a chance to be special. With a decorated coach in Van Gundy and lead executive in David Griffin, plus a unique city with killer cuisine. The Pelicans might have impact players flocking their way this summer. Number 3, the Memphis Grizzlies. So why should impact free agents give the Grizzlies a look? Well, first of all, this up-and-coming roster is already making waves without them. Memphis is on a 2-year run of outpacing expectations. Entering Sunday, this squad owns a better winning percentage than the Miami Heat and Boston Celtics, as well as a better net rating than the Portland Trail Blazers. And that's all true despite the fact that Jaren Jackson Jr., a central support pillar in the post-grit and grind rebuild, has been out all season recovering from a meniscus tear. It all starts with sophomore star Ja Morant, who is becoming the kind of floor general that other stars want to run alongside. The number 2 pick in the 2019 draft has the explosion and skill to thrive in the spotlight, but he also has the vision and selflessness to take on support duties while someone else steers the ship. If the campaign closed today, he'd be only the 6th player in NBA history to average 17 points, 7 assists in each of his first 2 seasons. A healthy Jackson could hold equal appeal as a future teammate. He offers the unicorn blend of shooting and shot blocking, plus enough mobility to switch everything defensively and the handles to blow by defenders off the bounce. Both building blocks are just 21 years old and have at least one more season on their rookie contracts. The Grizzlies should have the flexibility to chase just about anyone, especially if they decline a $13 million team option on the often injured Justice Winslow. There are other draws to the franchise. A lot of the young core is locked up on cheap deals and they all look good in role-playing duties. So this group has continued the small market Grizzlies tradition of outpacing expectations to stay competitive in the always challenging Western Conference. Coach Taylor Jenkins keeps pulling the right strings. Memphis barbecue is magical, but Morant and Jackson are the main motivations. The right free agent addition just might be chasing championships with that talented twosome sooner rather than later. Number 2, the New York Knicks. So the Knicks are already way ahead of schedule in their rebuild, as the emergence of Julius Randle and the addition of Tom Thibodeau gave the Knicks a stifling identity on defense that they were able to use in order to beat the living daylights out of opponents and make it to the postseason as the number 4 seed. If there was one area that was an eyesore for this team last year, it was the point guard position before Derrick Rose showed up. Elfrid Payton was a complete disaster, and Frank Ntilikina proved that he was not worthy of a first-round pick. With more cap space than any other team, the Knicks will certainly be players for someone like Kyle Lowry. Number 1, the Houston Rockets. With cap space and some tradable contracts, the Rockets will be a team that looks to make many moves during the offseason, including during the 2021 NBA Draft. After finishing with the worst record in the league this year, Houston ended up with the 2nd overall pick in the draft, leaving them with plenty of options. So the most ideal options for players, which includes the teams in the top 5, the Rockets are among the top charts for being one for the best destination to be in. The Rockets also own back-to-back picks at 23 and 24th overall in this year's draft, which opens up the possibility of a handful of trades for Houston on draft night. Faced with the tall task of rebuilding themselves back into a championship contender, the Rockets have young players like Christian Wood, Jason Tate, and Kenyon Martin Jr., as well as Kevin Porter Jr. to begin to build with. Not to mention, they still have veteran guys like John Wall and Eric Gordon, who they could potentially look to do something with. All of this makes the Rockets an enticing team for any player to be in. So what do you think? What, according to you, are the top free agency destinations for the 2021 NBA trades? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe and like us. I'll see you on the channel next time, and until then, hey, it's goodbye.